Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Become a Guitarist Today podcast with myself, Adam Roach. Now, in this episode, I'm joined once again by Andrew Bennett to talk about his 5150 collection. Now, for those who have seen the new Behind the Music documentary with Wolfgang Van Halen, there are actually a lot of spots in there where they talk about some of the footage that Andrew has available. So, for example, the one where Wolfgang calls David Lee Roth, Andrew's got all that on his collection.
All right, but you gotta tell me what you're about to do.
Okay, I'm about to call Matt Sensio, who is, I don't know, manager. He has some relations to David Lee Roth, and I'm just gonna see what's up. See if maybe Dave wants to come up.
And then also with the guys jamming together, so Wolfgang, Alex, and Eddie. This is all there. So make sure you check it out and enjoy the podcast. Alrighty, well, here we are. Welcome back to another episode of the Unleashed Van Halen footage. Thanks again, Andrew.
What's up, Adam?
Nothing much, and we're joined by a couple of guests already. So we've got Wright up in the right left corner, whichever that is. and then we have Chris. Right. Yeah, thanks guys for coming on board. And so we do have some new things available now that's coming up on the Unleashed 5150 collection by Andrew here.
There's ice in it.
Yum.
Which we'll talk about real soon. But
Yeah.
Andrew, you want to talk a little about it before we go into it?
Me?
Or you want me to do it?
Oh no, I'll kick it off.
All right.
The collection, kind of running up to like why this is coming out now, was, all this footage was shot 17 years ago, and I just never really knew how to properly put it out. I couldn't come up with any ideas. Like, I want to keep it rare. I want to keep it a collectible. I don't want to see its quality or how meaningful the footage is, like by putting it on YouTube and selling like fucking Diet Coke ads through YouTube or whatever people do. I wanted, it sounds cheesy, but I did want to keep it to like the diehard fans, not people who kind of like Van Halen, but like people who would come on a show and hold their fucking striped guitar. And have striped guitars behind them. 3 guitar players in front of me, and I'm talking about Eddie Van Halen, and I don't know how to play the guitar. So I'm sorry. So yeah, the idea was like, I like the idea of packaging it, So on this one, there's a smaller package and there's a larger package, and they're both limited in quantity. So there's not some never-ending amount here. And it's cool, man, because like here we are, we're creating this little community of people who have seen this.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And so, right, I know we spoke to Chris before about it, but what do you think of the footage you've seen so far?
Wow, it's hard to put into words. Sometimes I'm watching it and think, like, it's almost like watching a guy play the guitar. When you first start, he's a rock star. You're like, I can't believe I'm watching this. I cannot believe it, and I have to, adjust my brain a little bit. It's really great.
Yeah.
Pretty new to guitar, and I've started using it as a reference. Really, I'm just watching him do different techniques. The sounds that he makes, you're like, oh, that's how he makes that sound, or that's how he does it. It's really cool and helpful.
When I was putting everything together, watching the full rehearsals, like in real time, I would just put it on, sit there and watch the full rehearsal. And one of the first thoughts in my head was, are there too many close-ups of his hands? Did I shoot too many close-ups of his hands? And every guitar player I've talked to was like, no, it's awesome. Like,
Oh,
dawned on me that, like,
Yeah.
And, you know, short of Live Without a Net, it's not like the band ever put out like a really properly filmed live show where you would get to see those things. And music videos, obviously it's not happening in a music video. So it kind of dawned on me, I'm like, that's right. For guitar players, like, holy shit, like, you know, that's awesome.
It's definitely different than from watching a recorded concert. I'll do that too, but it's a whole different perspective. It really is.
Yeah, 'cause I think we spoke about it last time, Chris, where we were saying how just with those close-ups, you could really see exactly what he's doing at a technique. It's like and like you're saying, right? It's you don't really see that on the live videos, but in these ones, you can see everything. So definitely not too many close-ups.
Okay,
Well,
good.
yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say it's funny that Andrew mentioned Live Without a Net, because really, like, I remember, you know, as a kid getting that DVD, and you know, especially like the solo bits and pieces of Cathedral, and where he's behind the neck and hitting the strings, you know, up behind the bar and stuff, and just like Ed was talking about all these crazy noises that he's coming up with, and you know, really the only thing that was available that would give you any sort of similarity was Live Without a Net. And you know, I must have worn out 3 or 4 VHS tapes of that, and the DVD I had to buy it a few times. So, yeah, not only that though, like the quality, you know, like Live Without a Net, the quality's not bad, but compared to being a fly on the wall at 5150 and seeing Ed up close that much closer in his own element, it's not even really comparable.
Yeah, for sure. And to me, it really is like an instructional. I mean, yeah, Eddie never made an instructional DVD. This is Eddie's instructional DVD, really.
That's cool, man. Like, I would ask you guys, because I'm always curious, like, you know, as a director, I'd watch stuff, and like, I'm not turning the camera off and back on. I'm like running behind the soundboard. And again, like, I've gotten to talk to a few people, and I would say things like, oh, you know, man, I'm really sorry that, like, you know, for that 10 seconds, I had to run behind the soundboard to set up another shot. And somebody said, and I thought it was really cool, they're like, no, man, I felt like I was you in the room. I would have done that too. Did you guys feel like that? Like you're in the room and it's not necessarily like,
I,
you know.
I do. I watch it like it's like right there. Like I'm there. I do. Yeah. I just like a connection. It's a connection. It really is. You feel connected to it. Like you were there.
Yeah. I mean, what was cool was Ed didn't really interact with the camera. You know, in some rehearsals, you might see him like, you know, blast a quick smile to the lens because he had a sense of humor. But, you know, as a filmmaker too, and like I've done documentaries on bands, and I think like the way he's playing, he's not playing as if there's a camera there. Like that's him 100% natural, the way he is all the time. So yeah, I mean, that was cool that he like didn't ham it up for the camera. Like he plays like there's nobody else in the room except Wolf. I wish maybe I can get somebody to do like a 3D model of 5150, because it's like for some of those shots, I'm like laying underneath the soundboard. I don't even know if he knows I'm there. Other times I'm like hiding behind a speaker and getting the shot that way. There wasn't a lot of times where I'm like up in his face. I felt like I was stalking him.
That would be cool to know kind of how it's laid out, because I've tried to picture like you had a room, but which direction was it in? You can kind of picture Alex over in the other room, but you know, I know there's some more spaces that you've mentioned in the book. I think the garage with the guitars in it. I was just reading that part.
The little 2-car garage with just case after guitar case after guitar case. Yeah. Oh yeah, you read the chapter of why you should never break into Eddie Van Halen's house.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I think, you know, when you see pictures like this, just as an example of the man, right? He's there's a certain mystique behind Van Halen, and I don't know. I'm on the UFO tangent right now, but so it's kind of gonna sound funny, but 5150 is kind of like Area 51. You know, there's really not a lot of documented footage of it, so getting to be a fly on the wall and kind of actually see it and you kind of feel like you're there is wild, because there's really not a lot out there about it, and it's kind of a privilege to be able to see inside of Ed's world. I mean, let's face it, the guy's a genius, and I got the guitar, you got the guitars. Like, none of us would have these without him. So just to, yeah, get a glimpse into his world is just kind of wild. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I got the wall as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Oh, wow.
Dude, come paint a wall in my house. My wife would kill me.
Actually, my wife did that.
Oh,
Did that.
no, I mean my poor wife has to watch like the computer running 24/7, like exporting footage, uploading footage. You know, like when I go through to place a watermark or this, like she has to constantly hear the guitar.
Right.
She doesn't get to hear like, you know, the full song because I'm jumping and cutting and going back and forth. But she's been very patient. My wife is an artist. I could probably do like some messy little sketch and have her actually do like a drawing, like an overhead of like, here's Ed, here's Wolf, this is the soundboard, this is this little door you go through, and in there's a vocal booth. Then you go through this other door, and there's the drum room. Yeah, that'd be fun. I might have her
That is cool.
draw
That
something
would be
up.
cool. There actually is a vocal
Yeah,
room in there.
there is. It's this tiny little
Wow.
vocal booth. Like it's so small. Um, but when I was there in '04, Sammy didn't use the booth. Sammy sat on a stool with a microphone and just sang like that, like sitting at the soundboard with Glenn Ballard and Eddie. Um, I guess that's Sammy's method. It seems to work. um, uh, and then when Roth came one day, he was in the booth. Um, he only came one time for 15 minutes.
I think that's the other thing that people forget with 5150. Like, I mean, obviously the classic, the first 5 records that are loved dearly by all of us were not done at 5150, but everything else after Diver Down was done up there. Like, they did 1984 up there, which is probably the most quintessential record they ever did. So, I mean, if those walls could talk, so just getting to see, you know, see
Yeah.
every aspect of that studio too is like, you know, it's, I think a lot of people forget that all the stuff that was done up there, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it comes through in the book too when you see photos. It's not the fanciest place in the world. You know, all the details and TLC and all that have been done to that room where Ed is at the board, and the rest of the place is like a remote cabin. I mean, yeah, not the fanciest place, um, but Ed's take, you know, on 5150 was always, if you're not here to work, you don't need to be here. There's no reason for you to be here. So you know, there's no platinum plaques on the walls, none. Like he doesn't hang up them. I think maybe there's one against a wall somewhere for like some mass amount of records they sold over time or something. But the only plaque I ever saw is when they went gold in Mexico, and it's just a gold record kind of nailed onto a piece of wood. It was when 1984 went gold. I might add that to the next edition of the book, but you know, the place was no frills, man. It was there to work. So that place, you know, in addition to, you know, the records that were recorded there, you know, it's also a place where Eddie spends 18 hours a day. So, you know, like my friends would ask me, what does Eddie Van Halen do all day, man? What's he do all day up there? I'm like, he plays the guitar. Yeah, but what else? Guitar, 18 hours a day. Like, and I'm sorry, we can move on, but I always like to mention this, that like Eddie always called it practice. You know, like a little message out there to the young musicians. He always called it practice. Like, it was never anything else. It was never, I'm in the studio jamming. I'm gonna go into the studio and play. He always said, I'm gonna go to the studio and practice. And I'd be sitting there like, you
Yeah.
do realize you're the greatest who ever lived. Argument that I'm sure will now happen on Facebook. But you're the greatest who ever lived. We're calling it practice, you know? Kobe Bryant used to go to the gym on his off days, and he said he would shoot free throws until he couldn't lift his arms anymore. And like, you know, there's this consistent theme with the greats. Sorry, man. Sometimes I get in these modes where I gush about him. Like, I can't help it. The man was amazing.
Yeah, and he's practicing the songs that he created. They're his songs. They came from that brain and those hands, but he's still practicing.
Yeah, and those ideas. Yeah, and like, you know, to know that, like, you know, the final recorded version of that song was created in that room. It wasn't created somewhere else and then they went to a studio somewhere. It's like he created that at 3 o'clock in the morning with the doors opening, with the doors to the studio open, pissing off the neighbor. But yeah, man, it's a magical place. Like, when you're there, you can feel it, even though it's just basically a big old cabin on a hill. You can feel the history when you go in there. And yeah, I mean, I think that hopefully, you know, when fans see the footage, you know, like, obviously it's cool to watch him shred and watch him do his thing, but, you know, you get to, you know, those wide shots, so you get to see the room and kind of the details where, you know, everything since 1984 has happened in that one little spot he stands in.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Chris mentioned that all the albums from '84 on were recorded there. Yeah, and when watching it, I tend to forget that. It's like you feel like it's quiet all the time, or quiet. It's just Ed practicing or something, but it's had a lot of action.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, like, there's so much history there, just as far as like interactions too. I mean, things that happened. It's like, yeah, I mean, I hope that, like, what I brought there, like, I can't speak for Wolfgang, but, you know, Wolf is watching. I don't know. Like, I like to think that, like, Wolf and I got lucky in having each other there. Like, I'm there doing this weird, wacky, what the fuck am I doing at this place experience. And, you know, he's joining one of the biggest bands in history with his dad. We got to kind of, like, obviously he's 10 years younger than me, but, you know, I was also immature. So we're kind of balanced. But, you know, it was like, cool, man. Like, you know, we also have each other to, like, talk shit with and play Guitar Hero and hang out. So I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, Wolfgang's a genius, man. Like, you know, that tour was going to happen whether I'd been there or not. But, you know, I hope I made his experience leading up to that, you know, more of a good time. My apologies go out to Matt Bruck. I'm sure I annoyed the fuck out of you, Matt. My bad. Well, sometimes I think about that, like, you know, older and wiser. I look back and I'm like, God, if I had Matt Bruck's job, and at the same time, this dipshit kid is all of a sudden shown up and he's moving in a chair and a desk and he's got all this camera gear, I would have hated that kid. So if Matt Bruck is watching, I'm sorry.
Yeah, hopefully it does. I mean, I think it'd be amazing if Wolfgang saw this footage, because especially on these latest ones, is the connection you see between Eddie and Wolf. I mean, I know I've said this before, but yeah, I'd love to see that if you know, with my kids and everything on footage and have all that captured. And you captured it all, you know,
yeah.
Moment.
Yeah, I think Wolf was there, but when I watch the footage, what Wolf's not seeing is he's looking down at his bass, and he doesn't see his dad looking at him.
Yeah,
and the way his dad would look at him, like, so proud, and oh my God, like, I mean, those moments where Ed's looking at Wolf, like, that's the happiest anybody had seen Eddie Van Halen in 20 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Is in that moment.
Wolf. Okay. The W is an upside down half. Okay. I know. And half of it is upside down W.
I have written Wolfgang. I've written him a few times over the years. You know, I've said, like, you know, I'm not holding this footage hostage or anything. I mean, I think at this point, like everybody knows I didn't get paid. Like it's in the book, but none of this is done out of spite or anger or anything like that. Like it's has nothing to do with any of that. But I've written to him. I've just said like, hey man, like I would love for you to see this footage. Like the way I always phrase it is that I always phrase it to him as like I've emailed him 4 or 5 times, but I've always said the same thing, which is like for me this was an experience, but for you this is your life and your family, and you deserve to see this. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I haven't heard back. But Wolfgang's busy.
That's right.
He is. Though, like a documentary. I just saw it today. His Behind the Music maybe just came out.
I've seen it already.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but my first thought was, not to sound like an asshole, but my first thought was, I have some great footage that could have gone along with that.
You've got Behind the Music.
I did film your first rehearsal.
So yeah, so going back to these new ones we have here, talking about 5150. So this is basically in the studio with the 3 Van Halens together, and I'll just play a little bit, and then just so you can see.
Really got me.
We did that.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, we did? Yeah, second song.
Huh?
We already did it, second song.
That was the second song.
We already did it, second song. Encore. Everybody wants some.
Oh yeah, I want some of that.
I think that's me.
Is that what you said? I want some of that.
I think that's me.
Yeah, let's put it there for a second. So that studio there, you can actually see like all the tapes and everything behind Alex in the grand piano. So is this actually another room in 5150?
Yeah, so I just always referred to it as the drum room.
Okay.
It's big, big room. So like behind me, if I'm shooting towards Alex, behind me is just kind of like a bunch of drum gear all stacked up with blankets over it.
Yeah.
But what you did that's amazing was that footage was never going to be included in these collections because that room was too fucking loud. That room, man, I have been on stages next to amps, listening to Deftones go, and all that shit never fazed me. No problem. Standing in a room with Van Halen and Alex on drums, loud. And the camera did not like it. I tried and tried to like, you know, take things down, do everything I could audio wise, but the room was just too loud. The only time anything ever worked in that room, and this is just a miracle and we should all be grateful, was the one time he played Eruption. You know? In the beginning of Eruption, it's a little noisy, but you know, when he gets into the nitty gritty, it's nice and clean. But what you did, that's fucking genius, was you were able to take audio from the board and sync it with that, which was brilliant because now there's new days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
thanks, man.
No problem. So basically, just a brief outline. So it's 6 new songs recorded in that studio. So we've got Little Dreamer, Ain't Talking About Love, Ain't Chained, Panama, Dancing Night Away, and Everybody Wants Some. And the thing that really freaked me out is because the audio is taken from the soundboard, but put over this video footage, but the timing is nearly exactly the same. Even though it's different days or different times, it just shows to show Alex's timing is just incredible. You know?
But luckily, that board audio syncs up.
Yeah, exactly.
And they weren't recording his vocals. I think all that was dialed in was bass, drums, and guitar.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really put a lot of focus on the vocals. They just kind of did them because they knew they'd be doing them. But what's cool is that, you know, in that big room, there weren't a lot of rehearsals in that room.
Oh, really?
It's nice to have like, yeah, there's not a lot in that room. So it's kind of like those are the only times you really get to see the three of them together in one room.
Okay.
So you see them singing.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's like, I mean, that's got to be like May or June 2007, because it's leading right up to the tour. You know, and everybody looks healthy and happy.
Yeah, nice.
You know?
Looking healthy there. He looks to be in good spirits. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but that looks similar to the footage you would have shot for Guitar World when the 5153 came out, I believe.
No. Yeah, we probably used some of that.
Yeah, because I remember the DVD that came out with that when the 5153 came out, Guitar World did their big feature on it. And in that DVD, there's clips of the boys rehearsing.
Yeah.
It's got short hair though, so it looks like period correct.
Yeah.
It looks
Actually, I made that. I made that DVD for Guitar World. And what's funny is nobody ever gave me the DVD.
I've got it somewhere, I think.
Somebody actually sent me one. Who got my book, wrote me and sent me one, which is really fucking cool. Yeah, it was the only other thing we ever really made. And it was funny because I had asked Ed, you know, like like Fender, whatever, they want to do this thing. And he's like, they told me they had people in-house who do it. And I told them, yeah, but they're not coming to my house. Andrew's already here. Yeah, the idea of Eddie Van Halen letting a small film crew come up there, it's crazy. But it was cool, man.
Yeah. So I guess the good thing with this footage is, like you're saying, once I start playing, the audio is just like, you know, so the original.
Oh yeah, the original audio, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. It's just blown out speakers.
Yeah.
Like I said, like that's the only time in my life where I've thought to myself, it's too loud in this room. You know, and I saw Kiss play in a room half the size of that room. You know, like, yeah, man, it's fucking loud. But you know what? That's how it should be. They're Van fucking Halen, man. Like, you know, I'm telling you, like, because he called it practice. Every session was important to him. This wasn't like, you know, all right, let's fuck around and play this set list. Like, Ed either came in with 100% or he didn't come in. But I never saw that man go up there and half-ass it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the good thing is you do get these little parts in between as well, where the sound's okay from the camera, like where Wolfgang's just, you know, do a bit of slap.
Yeah.
Slapping the bass. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of spinal.
No, I mean, I hope that.
This is Spinal Tap.
This way, ready, Dad? Let's go. Come on.
I'll let these guys speak to it, but I talked about how, like, you know, I wouldn't turn the camera off and turn it back on. Like, I always just made sure it was running. Yeah, I mean, I hope that one of the other things that people get out of the footage is that, you know, because Eddie and Alex were pretty private guys, that now you get to see them in this very natural element. And like I said, they're not hamming it up for the camera or anything like that. So you actually get to see behind the scenes how these brothers interact, like they're, in a sense, in their natural habitat.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's not just them playing. It's, you know, kind of spending a couple of hours in there and hanging out and watching them interact and banter and watching Ed, you know, get on the floor underneath the board to adjust something, you know, showing you, you know, the greatest ever had no problem getting on his hands and knees. He didn't need an assistant.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, did you guys catch that? Did you guys enjoy like the stuff in between songs?
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite parts, honestly. Because yeah, I don't know, like I don't know what Warner Brothers was thinking. No slight to Warner Brothers over the years, but like really, there's nothing. There's Live Without a Net, and that's about all you got. And I mean, obviously, that's long before the internet and YouTube and all this stuff. So I mean, I'm a bit younger, but I think for guys like Adam and stuff growing up, trying to learn this stuff, like there really was nothing.
No, right.
So you're just kind of, it was like a mystique that you were kind of creating in your head. So yeah, to see, like, that's what I was going to say, is just to kind of see the, like, it's great to see Wolf and Ed. But what I enjoyed even more, I think, is just seeing that dynamic between Ed and Alex. Like, even when Ed's manning the board and he goes, "Okay, time for some Alex Van Halen," and then Alex just looks on his face and like, "Fuck off, Ed," and he just starts, making noise so Ed can get the levels and stuff like that. Like, that shit that you never see, and it's really cool to see the dynamic like that and them in their element and just doing their thing for sure.
Ed plays the guitar, so you're there, like, you can see him play the guitar, but you don't know that he talks a lot, or he talks. So it's good to see him do regular human things.
Yeah, right.
Working on stuff.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was always tweaking something, man. Like, I watched him many times, like, leave the studio, go to the workbench, do something, go back in the studio. Yeah, that man worked real hard. But yeah, I thought, it's cool that people get to see him be natural too. Like, this is how he interacted with Wolf. Like, I can describe it all I want in the book. Like, in the book, I could talk about like Ed's reaction to Wolf being there and how happy it made him. But now people can actually see this and see like that smile that Ed has, when Wolf's, not even looking at him. Like, yeah, I think it would be tough to humanize Eddie Van Halen. Like, to me, he was always just this like this like fictional being. Nobody could possibly be that good, so he must be a superhero. So yeah, you get to see hopefully you get to see like how nice and kind and fun he was.
Again, just always smiling.
Yeah, he was always smiling, man.
Good.
So yeah, good. I'm glad that sorry, man. Like, sometimes I'm just like, I hope people saw this aspect of it, and I hope people, so it's good to hear that you guys are seeing that human side of him.
Yeah, it's easy to see a rock star and put him up on a pedestal, but sometimes it's nice to be able to bring them down a little bit and understand them well.
Yeah, and it's also nice because I know there's always talk and assumptions made in the Van Halen world, and I've read a couple of comments where, in regards to like this footage being from 06 to 07, people are like, "Oh, well, I would never want to see him in that condition," but you don't, for starters. Like, the majority of that time, Ed was in great shape. I think like around Wolf's first rehearsal, he was still looking a little haggard. But by no means in any of this is he too drunk to play or being crazy or any of that. Like, there were bad days there, but those don't get released. But everybody kind of always has this assumption that like it was a dark time there. Ed was drinking, or whatever assumption they have, or all these things. And it's like, well, if you watch this footage, you'll see that actually he was having a pretty good time.
Yeah,
I think probably a couple of years, probably. Yeah, well, like you said, you were in there in 04. I guess that was probably around the time he was having. It was probably the darkest, I think, but he was coming out of it when you got back in 06.
Yeah, when I was only there in 04 for a couple of weeks, and when I went back in 06, I have two different Eddies. Eddie in '04, unrecognizable. But I'm not spilling the beans on this. Like, everybody saw Ed in '04. But
it's good to see somebody. So good to see somebody clean up like that.
yeah,
I think I was looking at pictures from back in the '90s, and the way when he got better, around 2015, he kind of looked a little bit the same that he had 20 years earlier. He just had that period in there where he was, I don't know, was it was the cancer or something that really got him down.
Yeah.
Just
like Ed was a big inspiration to me in a lot of ways, except the guitar. I can't play the guitar. But his work ethic, his loyalty to people, things like that. But I got sober 9 years ago, and when I got sober, he was one of the people that I thought of consistently, and because part of it was like why he did it. He got sober because he didn't want to be a burden to his family anymore. He wanted to have this great relationship with his brother, his wife, his kid. But also, like, there's always a thought in my head of, well, if Eddie Van Halen can get sober, I can get sober, because that man had everything in the world. Like, he wasn't going to go broke drinking. But that man, despite having the world at his fingertips and having anything he wants, always being adored if he cared to, decided that there were things more important than to get clean. And he inspired me on that. And he fucking did it, man. Like, when he decided to do it, he did it.
Yeah. And you see the huge difference too from the 2006 videos that you did compared to these ones, 2007. Just that transition as well. Like, he's drinking water between songs, and yes.
Yeah. I mean, in '06, yes, there's some shots where you see him drink wine. If he hadn't done that on stage in front of the world, then I probably would have left that stuff out if it was some kind of secret. But it wasn't a secret. And also, you've seen this. He's not sloshed. He's not shit-faced drunk. He's just having some sips of wine.
Yeah. It's not like there's a party going on there. There's not
absolutely not
bottles sitting around.
No, no visitors. Yeah, man. I mean, he, in '06, like, I don't know. Like, I was always on the fence of, like, do I show the '06 footage or not? But if I didn't, then we lose a lot of the history of it. Wolf is younger, he's learning songs. But I picked those days from '06 where, yes, he's having some wine, but he is shredding on the guitar. He's enjoying himself. He's having a good time. So none of that, like, from '06, I just made sure that everything was respectful. Like,
that is,
no, I mean, somebody asked me the other day about the '04 footage and would I ever put anything like the It's About Time video we did. That's been all over the place forever. But as far as, like, the rest of the footage, no. Like, that was a shit time in his life. And, we should all be focusing on, him smiling while he's playing Eruption or shredding Hot for Teacher with his kid, not, let's go back to '04 at 3 o'clock in the morning when he's pissed off at Sammy Hagar. Yeah, I want to keep his legacy with respect, and hopefully I've done that.
I think it's nice to see him. Like, I think that's one of the things I like about it too, is because, again, there wasn't really a lot of footage, and you kind of do the reading. And I think people forget too, not only was he a brilliant guitar player and songwriter, but, like, he rewrote the book. Like, really, you have Les Paul, you have Hendrix, and then you have Ed. And he rewrote the rules on playing guitar and kind of brought all this stuff to the forefront, but also tinkering, like the stuff that, like, the way that amps are made now and the way guitars are made, and just even, like, potting pickups, and the first guy to use Floyd, really, and stuff like that. So to see him, like, when you think Eddie Van Halen, there's a few images that come to mind, probably him in the jumpsuit at US Fest in '83, or the Women and Children first superhero outfit, and he's smashing through a door with a cape on, kind of thing, right? So to see him just kind of being a regular dude is really cool. It kind of brings it back down to earth in a way that you wouldn't see without the footage.
Now, Andrew, I do have this other message.
Oh yeah,
this guy is.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we did. We asked, you know, because the collection's limited. There's only so many people who have it that I can ask.
Yeah.
You know, and you guys are so cool to come on these different time zones, and so one of the guys there was nice enough to record himself because he has the collection and just share his thoughts real quick. So yeah, man, throw him up there.
Hey guys, sorry, I wish I could be there with you this evening, but my wife's got a part-time gig on the internet and I got slow access. But Andrew, there's your book. Your video footage in 5150 is absolutely amazing. I recommend anybody who has not seen it get it. It's well worth it, especially if you're an Eddie Van Halen fan, Wolfgang fan, anything. You know, this guy does amazing work. His book is amazing. And yeah, you guys definitely need to check it out. Good luck with tonight's podcast, man. Talk to you later. Peace.
There you go.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's a lot of people feeling like that, so that's good.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank Andrew for bringing me on and having me talk a little bit about this footage that he has. For any Van Halen fan, for any guitar fan, for any guitar players. I mean, I think most of us that are guitar players idolize the man, Eddie. I mean, this stuff is incredible. This footage is so up close and personal that there's really not much left to the imagination. I'm a gear nerd, so I think one of the big parts for me is being inside 5150 studio and kind of getting to check out everything in the background, you know, the gear, the guitars hanging on the walls. A lot of that little stuff is one of the coolest parts for me. I think it's worth every penny to buy this footage from him because you can't get this stuff anywhere else. It's such a limited thing. I'm a bit of a collector too, so that aspect of it appeals to me too. It's like, oh, it's so rare or so, you know, limited that not very many people have it. So that's another thing that drew me in. But I've been a big Van Halen fan for 30 years more. So I mean, been a guitar player for about the same amount of time. So there's really like some of the ultimate Van Halen stuff out there, in my opinion, because the band has done such a limited amount of behind the scenes or you know, you don't see hardly any videos of rehearsals live, very few in studio things that are out there. I know there's been a couple of things in the past where, you know, Entertainment Tonight or whatever, we'll go interview, and you know, you're talking like a 5-minute segment, 10-minute segment at the most. But this stuff is, you're talking full length rehearsals, an hour on some of them. I think there's some that are 45 minutes in that range. But this stuff's incredible. Seeing Wolf in the band and 15, 16 years old, I mean, that kid was smoking. He was on fire, and then, pun intended. And then, yeah, of course, Eddie. And then there's some really good footage of Alex as well, which is, I love drums just about as much as I do guitar. So, I mean, Alex is an incredible drummer. So getting to see that footage too, it's priceless to me. I mean, I know there's got the phone call that Wolf made to Dave, priceless. The clips that Andrew edited together to kind of make some music videos, those are pretty awesome. I love them. the Eruption. Played Eruption one time while he was there. Andrew got it on film, recorded, and man, it's incredible. That's really all I can say. But anyone who's a huge Van Halen fan like me should definitely check this footage out. It's worth anything you give for it. It's worth it. I mean, any amount you buy, it's never disappointed me. It's incredible stuff. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Yeah, I mean, it's, not to sound cheesy, but it's cool that the footage, it's beyond like, oh wow, it was so cool to see him play on Fire, but for people to really get that, personal vibe, and especially like, people have been diehard Van Halen fans since they were teenagers, like finally getting to see this side, like, dude, getting to see people that happy and like excited, like that makes me feel good, man. Like I think it's rare in this day and age that somebody has this kind of access to somebody that famous and this kind of footage. And I'm not tooting my own horn or anything, but like, and it's not selling it to TMZ, I told TMZ to go fuck themselves. Because I just want to make sure, because it was always important to me, because I understand what Van Halen means to people. It's not just like, oh, they fucking rock and I love Van Halen. It's that this goes back decades with people, and this band's a part of their lives. So the footage, the book, like this all had to be presented with respect. And I think, I know that when TMZ tried to buy shit from me, they thought that I would sell it. One, because I think they're used to people just selling anything. But, the book had come out and they knew that I never got paid. And I think they thought that somehow I had this chip on my shoulder. And I was like, he never paid me, so fuck it, I'll sell this shit to TMZ. TMZ was dead wrong. I told them, I'm like, you guys don't understand. Eddie Van Halen means a lot to people. And I'm not going to ruin that for people. Plus, yeah, I never got paid. I don't have anything bad to say. Absolutely nothing negative to say about Eddie. Being there was a blessing,
I think we applaud you for showing that restraint, not selling that. Could it be so easy for somebody to have something like this to just cash in? But it's
did I share the TMZ?
I think with the book, you put it out there in a book where anybody can. I mean, you still get the feeling reading it all to get it in. There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
I was flipping through mine. My phone's propped on it right now. But it's. I mean, we're 25 people on the planet can see this awesome footage, and it does make it.
There's a few left. There's a few left. Don't get me wrong. There are a few left, people.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So people who buy the collection, I hope this doesn't come off creepy, but I kind of check everybody out. Like I look at people's profiles and Instagram, like, I want to make sure everybody's a cool person. I've talked to a lot of people on the phone. But I like to see that they're true Van Halen fans. Most people come from like Van Halen fan groups we're in on Facebook. So, it's not like this is even being advertised or pushed to the masses. Like, I didn't buy Facebook ads or anything like that. Like, I'm sure people are annoyed that every day is another post and another post and another post. But, yeah, man, I just thought it would be a cool thing to keep to a small group of people, and obviously trustworthy people.
And even the audio, like I remember the first thing I think I heard was I can't remember what day it was. It was January of 07. But the warm up for the day where they're launching into like Dazed and Confused, and I think I actually started crying. And, like I've heard every single Van Halen song on the planet. I've seen everything there is to see, and so even seeing like hearing On Fire, but hearing that stuff again, it was like something new. And you know, I've got a couple buddies that play guitar, and they've come over, and you know, they haven't seen the footage, but I've showed a couple snippets, and just to see their jaws drop, and they're not big Van Halen fans either, but just to see their jaws drop and them to go, holy shit, it's like, it's just unreal, you know. And that's kind of the consensus. Everybody, I think, is probably, it's like, holy shit, like this is crazy.
It's funny you say that, because in the book there's the story of the day he played Eruption. And, you know, I had to come up with a little title for every one of those stories. And the Eruption title is, holy shit, he's playing Eruption. Because that was the vibe. The second he goes, hey, Bill, I'm going to play Eruption real quick. I was just like, holy shit, he's about to play Eruption. The only time he ever played, it's the only time he ever played it.
That's really interesting. That, I mean, I remember reading that, but it wasn't it originally him kind of warming up, messing around, and Templeman heard it and said, "Hey, we need to record, get that on tape."
Yeah.
So it was kind of, it was something that he was just noodling around.
His practice for his solo spot that weekend at Guitari's, I believe. And thank God for Don Landy. He was smart enough to just have the tape rolling. So
yeah. Well, I think, because you guys have seen the clip, I think what's cool about it too, when we're talking about like humanizing him, is, you know, when he goes to play it, he messes up a couple of times in the beginning and starts over. And one of my friends watched it. He just goes, I think that's the only footage that exists in the world of Eddie Van Halen messing up Eruption. But, you know, on the third get, he gets it. You know, obviously afterwards he's like shaking his hand like it hurts. What does he say? He's like, God damn, I haven't played that song in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And it's, again, the human side of him to, you know, refer to Eruption as that song.
Yeah. I think the other good thing is too, with all the different rehearsals you have, like Eddie, he never plays a song the same. Like, I know, especially doing those videos, where I had to try and sync it up. Like, he changes it all the time. It's like listening to a whole new rehearsal each time you do it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's, I mean, you guys are
things that I noticed. It was good. That's why it's good to use it as a reference, because you see it played one way, you see it in a book played one way, you see it in a concert another way, and this, you're like, okay, I don't have to play it exactly this way, because Ed changes it and plays it differently.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, right.
It's like Edvolution, so to speak.
Exactly.
I mean, like, you got to think of how many times those guys have played that stuff too. So it's cool to see the little flourishes and even like the fills and I kind of am appreciative that there's no Sam or Dave, to be honest. Takes that argument right out of it, and it's just, you can just hone it what they're doing, and those little tiny little fills and things that you wouldn't notice otherwise, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think one of my friends said, you know, because all the audio, by the way, you sync that stuff up recently. You sync that up to the board audio, because we had to do that because of that room. But the other rehearsals, you're hearing the audio in the room when they're playing, you know, like, and it's clean. It's not too, it's really clean. So yeah, not everything's synced up to the soundboard. It is the natural audio from the room. But yeah, man,
we haven't talked about the Alex drum footage. That's really good.
Oh yeah,
I enjoyed. You know, I didn't realize that I could pick out a song with just the drums, and some of them, I guess, it is kind of hard. But you know, you pick up on if you listen to them long enough, you're like, oh, that's Hot for Teacher, or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's
you know, on that Alex
there too.
Yeah, and on that Al footage, you know, for the drummers, in that room on that specific Alex camera that comes in the collection, you really don't hear Ed and Wolf. It's really, really focused on just the drums. yeah, when it comes to the audio, like obviously I got the board audio after every rehearsal, and like you were saying, there's no Sam, there's no Dave, and like one of my friends was listening to the audio. He goes, "You know what this is? This is going to be the best Van Halen karaoke ever." People can just plug in a mic and sing along, and your karaoke band is actually Van Halen.
So the other thing I do have, talking about those drum tracks. So I've got the all the songs listed here too. So if you guys do want this PDF, just let me know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
that's
have
this
it
down.
here. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, so all the things that Alex plays, and even down to his little buzz strokes and little jazz beats, in between songs.
That's awesome.
So I've done that pretty much on all the videos. So I've got little timestamps of where everything happens.
Nice.
That's so cool, man.
Your homework.
Yeah. Took a while.
Awesome.
Yeah, so if you want a copy, just let me know.
You've been so cool to put those PDFs together because, you're well more versed in Van Halen songs than I am. And because there's no lyrics, sometimes it's hard for me to decipher which song that is. I know I'm probably an asshole for not knowing everything about Van Halen. But yes, I learned a lot. But every now and then I'm like, what song is that? When I first went there, I didn't know much. Like Alex kind of like would chat with me about like the history of Van Halen and tell me all these great stories. And Ed would share stuff with me, and obviously I got to know Van Halen through Van Halen. But I was kind of learning as I went because I was a 90s kid, and and at our little circle of friends, we're all these punk rock kids with crazy hair, wearing our Bad Brains shirts. And so I had to learn about Van Halen later on. But as a couple of my friends put it, you're the most undeserving motherfucker on the planet. Over the years, like that love and respect for Ed. Yeah, man, I'm lucky. I would have missed out on a lot of stuff if it weren't for this experience.
So that must have been by far probably the coolest Van Halen history lesson of all time. And
my teachers were Ed and Al.
But I think had you have been a big Van Halen fan, none of this ever would have happened. And that's why probably the footage is so cool, and why Ed and Al are just like in their zone doing their thing, because you weren't blowing smoke up their ass or trying to worship them like a million other people, right?
I didn't have questions about the history. I don't know how to play guitar, so I had no guitar questions. And Ed, when we first met in 2004, first thing he said to me at 3:00 in the morning, "So what do you know about me, and what do you know about my band?" I just said, "You want me to be honest?" And he goes, "No, I called you at 3 a.m. to come to my house and lie to me. Yeah, be honest." And I gave him this is kind of all I know, which is just a couple of things. And he goes, "Holy shit, I haven't met anybody in 30 years that doesn't know everything about me." And he's kind of put his arms around me and he goes, "Andrew, you and I are going to get along great." And we did. I think it was, being around him and seeing people interact with him, from the friends that would come around, or, when we go to the grocery store and how people react. That's when it dawned on me, holy shit, I don't think he was lying. I think this man has not met anybody in 30 years that doesn't know all about him. I like to think I'm very well educated at this point. Still can't play guitar, Adam.
One day.
It's not too late. It's never too late.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So yeah, man, I don't know. Tell your friends.
That's it.
The larger package, there's a few left. Smaller package, there's a good amount left. Oh look, that's my wife's butt. Movie Secretary. If you ever see the movie Secretary, on the poster, That's my lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on, you guys. Like, I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Worries. Thank you. It was awesome. It's nice to do a little round table and shoot the shit about Ed.
That's it. We'll do it again.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks for coming on, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Shaft is back and is chasing young white meat.
Now, don't forget, if you do like this podcast, hit the like button, subscribe, and the little bell so you don't miss out on any episodes.